I'm Tracey Tucker, and this is Discover Flint Township, brought to you by Flint Township Economic Development Authorities, HAP, Financial Plus Credit Union, Shea Automotive Group, Guaranteed Rate, and 103.9 The Facts. This morning, we're going to do a little round table. I have two lovely ladies in the studio with me today. I have Dione Oliver from Guaranteed Rate, and I have Elizabeth Robinson from HAP. And we're going to start with Elizabeth today. So, what is your role at HAP?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Tracey. My role at HAP is to develop relationships with professionals, organizations, agencies, companies in the area that have a clientele or a customer base that are Medicare beneficiaries.
Okay.
So that leads me to the ability to provide educational support and become a resource to those professionals and those agencies to help with information about Medicare for the people that they work with. Think in terms of someone who's an HR professional or a financial professional who has clients or employees that they work with that might be retiring or might be turning 65 and are looking for advice and help and support in what they need to do, how to do it, when to do it about Medicare, because Medicare is so confusing and complex that having a resource in their pocket to come to with those questions to help that client, that person, that family member, the friend from church, the aunt, the uncle, the whoever, because all of us have someone in our life that is touched by Medicare, whether it's Medicare for the first time or Medicare that they've been in for several years, and having that person to come to with questions. So that's kind of what I do.
All right. And then the mortgage lady is here as well.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me again, Tracey.
Yeah, so and you're with Guaranteed Rate. Give out all your NML and NMLS stuff so we can get that out of the way.
I can do that. So Dione Oliver, the mortgage lady, NMLS 169474. I'm local to Flint Township on Miller Road in the Ross Plaza. And my number is 810-625-7381, and I'm just really happy to be here. I actually have questions regarding Medicare. I do, so it's like interesting because, insurances are so confusing to me. I have somebody that I'm like, okay, Erica's one of my sons. I'm like, you just take care of that, all the insurances. But as being in the financial world, I have a lot of clients that are over the age of 65, and they come to me with questions, and I don't know how to answer those. So how would I determine if a client asks me, like, let's say they're on Social Security and pension, right? How do we determine their Medicare benefits? Is that something that you can provide to them?
So that's a really great question. A lot of people have the same misunderstanding or lack of understanding about Medicare. And to be honest, that's why I have a job, because it's so confusing that I need to be here to help people walk through it. So Medicare, eligibility for Medicare is determined based on your paying into the Social Security system via your taxes into Social Security throughout your career. Or it can be, you're not necessarily 65 and older. You could be younger than 65 if you have a disability and you're on Social Security disability. So either way, you could be eligible for Medicare. So as long as you're eligible for Medicare, you want to make sure that you're turning those pieces on. The original Medicare is Part A and Part B. But what goes with Medicare, original Medicare, to support it and help augment it or supplement it, if you will, that's the huge competitive market to choose from. So especially for people who are turning 65, they're receiving tons of mail and spam phone calls. Everyone's trying to get their attention and interest in their own products. And sifting through all of that is really hard to do, especially if you're not familiar with insurance to begin with, which, let's face it, most of us barely understand our own insurance policy, let alone how to compare it to something else.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest. It's something that we all avoid because it's stressful and confusing and it's something you kind of put up a wall because we don't want to deal with it. So I'm here to walk you through it. I break it down into bite-sized digestible pieces. And that's what I can do, is provide the education. I can provide a connection to as a trusted agent and make that kind of Medicare matchmaking connection, if you will.
So it's not just an automatic thing. It's something you have to apply for?
Sort of. It depends on the situation, and that's where the intricacies become confusing, and that's what I come in to help out.
So I see Social Security benefit letters, and they have like the Medicare deductions, and then some people don't have those deductions. And then so from that situation, somebody has to apply for it versus, let's say, a General Motors worker who has paid, into Social Security their entire lives. Is that something that's just automatically kicks in for them at the age of 65? Like the differences?
So what happens is that Part A, there's two parts to original Medicare. There's Part A and Part B. Part A is hospitalization. Part B is outpatient medical. Part A typically does not have any premium. Part B always has a premium. So it depends on when the person turns 65, whether or not they need to turn on Part A and or B. And Part B would be a deduction from their Social Security payment if they're receiving that yet. So it depends. There's so much of it. It's like putting together a 500-piece puzzle. Like and you don't even realize the pieces that are your puzzle. Right. But I come into the picture and I can help you understand how it all works together and put them together for you.
That's so funny because that's exactly how I describe my mortgage business when I'm pre-approving somebody. I'm like, we've got a puzzle piece under the dog's bed. We've got a puzzle piece in, uncle's bank account, putting them all together. So it's funny that you use that analogy.
Yeah.
And so let's say, for example, I've got a client and, I'm directing them and they're disabled under the age of 65. And I don't see any deductions. So that means they've only got Part A and not Part B?
They might have Part A. They might not have turned on Part B. They might not need to turn on Part B.
How do they know how to?
They'd have to work with Social Security to turn on Part A or B if they're eligible, but they may not need either piece. And so that's when working with an agent is really going to put those pieces together so that you can see the whole picture.
So can I just give my clients your phone number?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm here for. That's exactly why. And the best way to get in touch with me directly is either by my email address or my direct phone number. So my email address is my first initial and my last name without the last letter. So it's erobinso@hap.org, or my direct phone number is 248-443-1131.
My clients are special. I'm going to need your cell phone. No, I'm kidding.
We'll work on that.
That's funny. Yeah. I love that. So, well, it was interesting, the questions you had, because, there's a lot of people out there, too, taking care of their parents.
Especially in our generation.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you see all these commercials. I swear to God, if I see Joni one more time,
those commercials are the bane of my existence.
I don't mind.
Yeah, exactly.
J.J. Walker, William Shatner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And my husband was like, I thought that closed in December. Why are these people still on TV?
Well, yeah. So the annual enrollment period comes up every fall, and that's when everyone who is currently on Medicare is encouraged to reshop, reevaluate, and see if they want to enroll in something differently for the following year. Following that, January through the end of March is a separate enrollment period called the open enrollment period, where folks who, whatever they enrolled in for January, whether it's something they kept or changed to in January, if they discover for some reason that it doesn't work the way they thought it was, or the doctors they thought were a network aren't a network, or whatever, they have the ability to make one additional change to their enrollment in order to course correct so they're not stuck in the wrong plan for the rest of the year. Outside of that, you really have to have a life qualifying event that triggers a special enrollment period, or be when you are first turning 65 and becoming eligible for the first time, or when you're retiring and coming off of that group coverage. Okay. So those are the times that we really look at. I mean, there's other circumstances too that trigger a special enrollment period, but those are the ones that we work with mostly.
So somebody that's retiring from General Motors and has been provided, that kind of insurance. Like my dad still has insurance through General Motors, but would he also qualify for Medicare? Like, explain to me the differences there.
So as a retirement benefit, once someone, if they're retired prior to 65, at the time that they turn 65, they're required to turn on Part A and Part B. They still may be eligible for that retirement benefit from the employer, like what you were saying. But there are lots of employers out there nowadays who don't have the ability to offer a retirement benefit. So that's when they want to make sure that they're turning on Part A and Part B, and then choosing the additional supplemental insurance that goes with it.
So you can't turn on Part A and Part B if you're a General Motors retiree or another company that has provided you with insurance until you're 65. So like my dad came out of General Motors when he was 50 some years old. You know, he started young. My brother's going to be the same way. Worked for General Motors for 30 years, but he started when he was 18. I'm 47, right? So and he's a year and a half behind me. So he's going to be under 50 years old, retired from General Motors, and he's still going to have those benefits. So he can't. He'll just carry that insurance until Medicare would kick in at 65, in which time they have to turn it on if it's still available then.
Yeah, so what happens in that circumstance is that there's a retirement benefit that's offered. So if they're under 65 but they've retired, they're given that insurance benefit, and then it just kind of changes shape at the time that they turn 65. It's still the retirement benefit. It's still insurance. They just have to turn on Part A and Part B, which contributes to the how the claims are processed. So basically, it's just kind of a shifting of shape of the benefits at that point.
So you have A and B, and you said A is the major medical
hospitalization.
Hospitalization. Oh, what is B? You said is outpatient?
Outpatient medical. So going to your doctor, any lab work, any outpatient medical procedures, physical therapy, anything like that. But what's not included in that is prescriptions. That's a separate piece called Part D. And then the other letter that has part attached to it is Part C, which is another word for a Medicare Advantage plan, which are those really annoying commercials because it's an incredibly competitive, it's just a massively competitive market. And so the word of caution that I would give to anyone, because of those commercials and the amount of scammers that are out there taking advantage of Medicare beneficiaries, just to be really, really careful. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And always defer to a local agent. If you have the ability to work with an agent directly, you're going to get much better counsel than if you work with the national companies and the Joe Schmoes that you'll never see or meet over the phone.
So like you have a local agency. So like if we've got questions, Tracey or I, or Rusty has questions, then we just say, call Elizabeth. She'll answer your questions.
Absolutely.
And there's different carriers for Medicare?
Yeah. So HAP is actually an insurance carrier. We're not an agency. I happen to be an agent that works for HAP. And we have tons of independent agents that I work with to connect people to. So we have trusted agents that we would then refer the people that come to me, I would then refer them and connect them to a local agent.
Based on their situation.
Exactly.
And what was going to be the best program. What about self-employed people? Because they don't typically, pay into Social Security.
So we have individual and family plans as well as Medicare plans. And then we also have small and large group plans. So basically any type of health insurance is what HAP does. I personally work in the Medicare, and that's what I specialize in, but I have colleagues who work with all the other types. So if you come to me and say, hey, I've got a young couple, they really need individual insurance because they're entrepreneurs, they run their own business, like you say. Well, I don't work with that particular type of plan, but my colleagues do, so I can connect you to them and get you the right help.
What about so self-employed, usually, you're working until you just physically can't work anymore, right? I mean, in some cases.
Right.
So you've got self-employed borrowers. I say borrowers because that's just my lingo. I apologize. Self-employed people, families who are over the age of 65.
Yep. So at that point, that's when they definitely want to be on Medicare and looking at an individual Medicare plan. And again, that's where I kind of specialize.
I'm full of questions today. Sorry, Tracey.
You're fine. You're fine. That's the whole point of the
And they're great questions. And they're the questions that everybody has but doesn't know who to go to ask them. Right. So that's what I'm here for.
Well, I appreciate
So thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And then you were going to talk about, let's talk one more time. It's EROBINSO@hap.org.
Yep.
If people have questions for Elizabeth. And was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we switch gears?
No, I just thank you for your questions. They're great questions. I love the interaction and so happy to be here. And let me know if there's any way that I can help, or if you have a target audience that you would like to provide an education to. If I can collaborate, I can do interviews, I can do webinars, I can do in person, I can do podcasts. I tailor presentations to the audience that will be receiving it. So whoever it is that needs to know a little bit more and understand better Medicare, that's what I'm here to help with.
Yeah, and there's a lot of places that could do something like that, like at the churches or even assisted living centers.
Yep,
things like
exactly.
That, especially.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm like seeing this like panel of, business women answering questions for our community.
Yeah.
Because people have mortgage rates. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about today. Is what's the difference between being pre-approved, what's between pre-qualified, and what are your first steps in taking to get to that mortgage pre-approval, like the lender that you call, the questions that you ask, what do I qualify for? So, working with the right lender who's going to have the right variety of options to offer to a client. So let's say, for example, Elizabeth, you're like, oh, I'm a first-time home buyer, and your friend says, oh, well, call Dione, she'll be able to answer all your questions. As a first-time home buyer, what are the questions that you need to ask, right, to make sure that you're well,
that's the hard part, is knowing what do I need to know,
I was
right?
just gonna say, that would literally be my first question, is what do I need to ask you? Because I don't know.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
And so the way that I would direct that is, the very first thing that I like to do is, I like to meet face to face. A lot of people don't do that anymore. But the first thing is I try to direct you to my website, because it's the most secured website that you can go to put in all your personal information. Because that way you're not transferring social security numbers and stuff like that over the phone or through email or anything like that. Go to my secured website. Let me think about what that is. It's rate.com/Dione Oliver. And when you apply there, you put in all of your personal information. So we are going to need name, address, social security number, date of birth, your 2-year residency history, and your 2-year employment history. Assets. Are you a veteran? Are you a first-time home buyer? These are all of the things that you're going to fill out. And then your declaration. Have you had a bankruptcy? Have you had a foreclosure? Have you owned any other properties in the last 3 years? That's going to give me the first clean picture of, okay, I know what your credit score is. I know where you work. I know where you live. I know if you've had any issues in the past, or are you a first-time home buyer? So when I look at that, then I'm going to say, okay, well, she's got X amount of money to work with. Right? Here's her income. So I'm going to figure your debt to income ratios. And then I'm going to offer you a variety of things that you would qualify for. For example, FHA. It's great for first-time home buyers, but you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. 3.5% down is the minimum down payment for an FHA loan. Rural development is another great loan. If you're needing 100% financing, there is some income restrictions and then property location restrictions. Conventional. Everybody thinks that with the conventional mortgage, you need 20% down. You don't. There's many different varieties of the conventional loan that you can apply
See,
for.
I didn't know. I thought that's how it had always been.
No, we've got 3% down programs for first-time home buyers, Home Ready, Home Possible. We've got 3%. So let's say, for example, you're a first-time home buyer, but your boyfriend isn't, and you guys want to buy a house. There's a 3% down program for somebody who is a first-time home buyer that's buying with somebody who is not. Still gets to take advantage of the 3%, 5%, 10%, 15%. And then the terms vary too. Not everybody wants a 30-year term. I can designate, like if I've got a refinance, let's say, and you've got 17 years left on your mortgage and you want a new 17-year loan, I can do that for you. We just originate it to the term that you want. It's a little bit of a specialty, but guaranteed rate allows us to do it. So outside of like conventional FHA, rural development, if you're a veteran, our VA loans, 100% financing, and we don't charge our veterans any origination fees. We don't charge any processing fees, nothing. Oh. So, our veterans are very well taken care of. Obviously, you have to be a veteran to qualify for that type of a loan. We do rehab loans. So when I'm looking at getting you pre-approved, I want to see, first of all, what do you want? Where's your payment comfort zone? How much money do you have? Do you need a gift? Because people can get gifts from family members. There's all different sorts of things that I look at, but I try to design the loan program to what's going to work best for you. And it might not just be one program. So I've got a client right now who's eligible to buy FHA, rural development, or conventional. And it's going to depend on the house that she's looking at, because this house might qualify for rural development, but this seller might not take a government loan. So I pre-approve you and go over the products with you so that you've got as much knowledge as you possibly can on what you're doing, and then I don't let you put an offer in on a house until you've talked to me. So you're working with your realtor and you find a house that you like, and then I'm like, wait a second, let me know what the address is, let me do my due diligence, look up the taxes, estimate homeowners insurance, and then say, hey, if you go FHA, here's going to be your interest rate, your annual percentage rate, which there's a difference we can talk about. Here's going to be your estimated payment. I look at the taxable value versus the assessed value so that you know and you make that offer. Here's going to be my estimated payment. Here's going to be the amount that I need at closing. And it will usually, almost come in spot on. And so that's just one of the things that I try to do. Whether you're a first-time buyer, repeat, I want to look at your entire picture. You said about putting a puzzle together, right? Yeah. So you see all the pieces, right? And they're all over the place. And we put them together, but we also have to work with, good partners.
Well, and there's a lot of moving pieces to what you're doing too, because the house might be here and the government loans are over here, and across the street qualifies, but this one doesn't. And it's just so many moving parts.
Yep. And then you've got title work and appraisals. And so when you're working with the lender, when you're choosing a lender, you almost want to interview them. So you know how you said that you have all of these agencies that you work with, and then you'll refer them to the right one. Or it's the same thing when you're talking with the lender. You can get online and you can look up anything that you want to look up, all the questions to ask. So interview your loan officer, interview the people that you're working with to make sure that you have your questions answered.
If you don't feel comfortable with the person you're talking to, you don't have to use them. There's plenty of people out there. I've always told my kids, if your first impression when you're dealing with something is something's not right, walk away.
Yep.
I hate that feeling of obligation because you started a conversation with this person, but you are not getting what you need out of it, but you still feel obligated. I hate hearing that from customers and clients. It's like, no. You don't have any obligation. They have an obligation to you. You don't have an obligation to them except to pay whatever bills.
Right.
Like it's really important to find the people to work with that work best and gel with you and can provide you with what you need.
Absolutely. And like, even in my office, like, I'm not the only loan officer, right? I've got, Jeff and Aaron and Brittany, Erica, we're all loan officers. Well, we work as a team. So like, if you come in and our personalities don't mix the way that you're comfortable, we would give you an opportunity to work with somebody different. Like, we don't want anybody to be uncomfortable. We all, want our clients to know that they're getting all of their questions answered. And then the other part of it is, if you're dealing with a realtor, your loan officer and your realtor need to have a good communication.
Right.
We need to be discussing you as a home buyer. You're making one of the biggest, transactions financially that you're probably ever going to make. And first of all, you don't want to choose the wrong house. You want to be fully aware of the type of loan you're doing, what the terms are, what mortgage insurance is. I could talk your ear off all day long with all the questions that you need to ask.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this many times about the pre-approval and pre-qualification is so important. For one thing, you don't want to be out looking at houses that you can't afford.
Yes.
Because that's you're just gonna get depressed because you're looking way above your means,
and then it would be heartbreaking.
Yeah, right. So you always talk to somebody like Dione to get this information. And then there was the issue with the taxing. Remember, we were talking about that, of people looking at what the people in the house that they're going to buy, what did they pay in taxes? Well, you know what? That really doesn't matter to you. You need to know what the assessment is on it, because with Proposal A, what they've been paying, if somebody came to my house and bought my house, I've been there 30 years. So that what is going to be taxed when a new buyer comes in versus what I pay is totally different.
It's completely different. I've actually learned a lot since our last segment about that. Is, they do a sales analysis about every 2 to 3 years, depending on the municipality.
Right.
And so with the market being on fire the way it is, 23 is coming, where there's, a lot of municipalities that are going to be doing a new assessment. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to take all the houses in that particular, municipality, and they're going to average what the new assessed value is going to be. So when you buy a house and it's a taxable value of 100 but an assessed of 140, you better just be prepared for that increase.
Right.
That's one of the things we do. And getting back to some of the questions that you ask is, for a pre-approval, whoever it is you're talking to, you want to make sure that you're turning in documentation, because what you tell me your income is could be different than what I can use to qualify. because overtime is a factor, bonuses, and if you don't have a history, you can't use it. So when you pre-qualify somebody, which I will not do, first of all, I look at the documentation because my name's going on the bottom of that. I'm going to know what your credit is. I'm going to know what your pay stubs are. I'm going to know what your assets are. I'm going to know what your 2-year W-2s, 1040s, all of that before I put my name on the bottom of a pre-approval letter, because I want to keep a good reputation.
Absolutely.
But I want to protect you. Think about it. In this market, you're selling your house, right? And I'm selling my house. So you've got different buyers. That's a trickle-down effect. And if one of them doesn't do their job properly, you've now affected 2 or 3 other families.
Absolutely.
And I can't bear that.
Right.
I can't sleep at night with that on my chest.
I just have to say, all of that you just talked about sounds like what I think Medicare sounds like to most people. Like, that is just like all Greek to me. I'm like baffled by this. I don't know anything about it, and I'm so bad at finances and stuff like that. So like, I would totally rely on you the same way that you would rely on a resource for Medicare. So it goes both ways.
And really, that's why it's great having you both here, because you both know your products. And me, I'm kind of like our listeners. I wouldn't know what to do with Medicare without coming to somebody like Elizabeth. And I wouldn't know what to do when it comes to a mortgage without going to somebody like Dione. So it's nice to have these conversations that our audience can listen in on and figure out, hopefully get some of their questions answered.
Absolutely.
So I want to give them your information. Dione, you gave out a website.
Rate.com/Dione Oliver, and it's just, apply online basically. So if you Google it, it'll come up and you just click the tab and it'll take you right to my online application.
Yeah, and they can call you too as well, right? And that way you can get started in the pre-approval, pre-qualification process.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be overwhelming. Like, I tend to talk fast or whatever. So guys, if you're listening, Dione Oliver, the mortgage lady, call me, 810-625-7381. I promise I'll answer all your questions. I'll take excellent care of you, and you will be provided with, service second to none.
Yeah, and that's Dione, the mortgage lady. We love having her here. She's also one of our sponsors with Guaranteed Rate. And then Elizabeth, you want to give out your information one more time?
Elizabeth Robinson with HAP, erobinso@hap.org, or 248-443-1131.
Well, thank you, ladies. This was so much fun, and the
great.
time just flew by. I can't believe it. I like doing these little round tables. We're going to have to do more of these in the future. But I want to right now let our listeners know that if they need to email us with questions, it's discoverflinttownship@gmail.com. You can visit us on Facebook at Flint Township Events to learn about all the events we have going on in the community. I think our next event is going to be the anti-littering campaign. Pick it up, you can make a difference. So we'll have more information on that next week. Our YouTube channel and our Anchor channel for our podcasts and our videos are Discover Flint Township on both sites. Our website is discoverflinttownship.com, and the township website is flinttownship.org. I want to thank our guests, Elizabeth and Dione, today. It was lovely having you both. And I want to thank our partners, HAP, Shea Automotive Group, Financial Plus Credit Union, Guaranteed Rate, and 103.9 The Facts. Discover Flint Township with us next week at 7:30 a.m. right here on 103.9. I'm Tracey Tucker, the Flint Township Economic Enhancement Director, and I would like to remind everyone to stay safe, stay healthy, shop local, buy local, and discover Flint Township. We'll see you later.